Florida is stunning. A land of vast wetlands, endless white sand beaches, and a coastline pushing 1,350 miles, more than any other state below the Canadian border. And here's something wild to put that in perspective. If you unrolled Florida's coastline and laid it flat, it would stretch more than halfway across the United States. Its geography is striking, its ecosystems rich, and its growth explosive. But beneath all the promise, one glaring problem lurks in plain sight. If you look at Florida's population density patterns, one thing becomes clear. Southern Florida is bursting with people, while the north feels almost empty. Why is that? Today, we're not asking why the north is empty. We're asking something far more interesting. What is it really that makes millions of people choose South Florida? Let's start with the land. The geography that started it all. South Florida is, geographically speaking, unlike anywhere else in the continental United States. The further south you travel, the more the landscape shifts. Pine forests give way to flat savannas. Savannas give way to sawgrass marshes, and eventually the land itself seems to dissolve into water. That's the Everglades. Nearly 1.5 million acres of slow-moving freshwater river, only inches deep but miles wide, creeping southward toward Florida Bay. Here's the part that blows people's minds. The Everglades isn't technically a swamp, it's a river. A river up to 60 miles wide, moving so slowly just a quarter mile per hour that you can barely see it flow. It is the only place on Earth where alligators and American crocodiles coexist in the wild. By the way, hit that subscribe button and bell for more future videos. Now, back to Florida. The coastline alone is staggering. On the east side, the Atlantic crashes against miles of barrier islands and sandy shores. On the west, the Gulf of Mexico offers some of the warmest, calmest, most impossibly turquoise water in the world. Between them, a thin strip of civilization, and above it all, nearly uninterrupted sunshine. The Miami metro alone now holds over 6.1 million people, making it the 8th largest metropolitan area in the United States. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because of an almost perfect collision of geography, climate, culture, and opportunity. And it all starts with the one thing South Florida does better than almost anywhere on Earth. The beaches. The beaches are world-class. Full stop. Let's be honest about something. The beaches of South Florida are world-class. Not just good for America, not just impressive for the East Coast. World-class. Full stop. South Beach in Miami is one of the most photographed stretches of shoreline on the planet. The sand is fine, pale, almost white. The water shifts from pale aquamarine near the shore to a deeper sapphire further out. And the backdrop, Art Deco buildings painted in pastel pinks and yellows and ocean blues, makes the whole scene feel like it was designed by someone who had never seen an ugly thing in their life. That Art Deco historic district, by the way, is the largest concentration of Art Deco architecture anywhere in the world, with over 800 buildings listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Drive south and you hit Key Biscayne, a barrier island with calm, glassy water on one side and open ocean on the other. Keep driving on the Overseas Highway, the road that runs through the Florida Keys over dozens of bridges above open water, and you reach some of the most surreal coastline in North America. One of those bridges, the old 7 Mile Bridge, was so long and so flat it was used as a set in the movie True Lies and was once called the 8th wonder of the world by local promoters. Swing to the Gulf Coast and the beaches change character entirely. Naples Beach is pristine and powdery in a way that feels almost unreal. Siesta Key has been ranked the #1 beach in the United States multiple times. The sand there is so fine and white it's almost cool to the touch on a blazing afternoon, because it's made almost entirely of quartz crystal. These aren't just nice beaches. They're the reason people book flights, the reason snowbirds buy second homes, the reason someone who visited on a college spring break ends up moving here a decade later because they never stopped thinking about that water. The beaches are a gravitational force, and once you've experienced them at their best, most other coastlines feel like a consolation prize. The water lifestyle is unmatched. In South Florida, the water isn't just scenery, it's infrastructure. It's how people live. The region is laced with canals. Thousands of miles of navigable waterways run through Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. Enormous numbers of residents live directly on them. You can pull a boat out of your backyard, cruise through a canal, and be on the open Atlantic or Gulf within minutes. Fort Lauderdale calls itself the Venice of America, and the nickname holds up. Its waterway system stretches more than 160 miles within the city limits alone. In fact, Fort Lauderdale has more boats per capita than almost any city on Earth. There are more registered vessels in Broward County than there are in many entire countries. But the water lifestyle isn't just about boats. It's about surfing, paddleboarding, kayaking, kite surfing, deep sea fishing, snorkeling, and diving. The Florida Keys are home to the only living coral barrier reef in the continental United States, stretching nearly 360 miles and drawing divers from around the world. And here's something most people don't know. Beneath those waters lies an entire underwater city. Literally. The Christ of the Abyss statue, a 9-foot-tall bronze figure, has stood submerged in the clear waters off Key Largo since 1965, attracting divers from every continent. And the sport fishing here is a global destination. Marlin, sailfish, mahi-mahi, all within reach of a half-day charter. What this creates is a community of people who organize their entire lives around the water. Weekend plans revolve around tides and weather windows. People spend their Saturdays on sandbars in the middle of Biscayne Bay, anchored together in groups of 20 boats, sun overhead, water crystal clear beneath them. There is a joy to this lifestyle, a looseness, an ease, that is genuinely rare. And once you've experienced it, you understand immediately why people don't leave. The water lifestyle in South Florida is not just unmatched in the United States, it's unmatched almost anywhere on Earth. One of the most diverse places in America. Here's what might be the single most underappreciated reason people choose South Florida. And this is worth saying plainly. South Florida is one of the most diverse places in America. Not diverse in a marketing brochure sense, diverse in a daily, lived, you can hear 5 languages at the grocery store sense. More than 70% of Miami-Dade County residents were born outside the United States, or have at least one parent who was. Over 60% speak a language other than English at home. That actually makes Miami one of the least English-dominant major cities in the entire Western Hemisphere, a remarkable distinction for an American metro. The Cuban community in Miami is one of the largest outside of Cuba itself. Little Havana is not a tourist attraction dressed up to look ethnic. It is a living, breathing community where dominoes are played in the park, where ventanitas serve café cubano through small windows, where the rhythms of daily life are inseparable from Caribbean culture. But the story doesn't end with Cuba. Miami is also home to enormous communities from Colombia, Venezuela, Haiti, Brazil, Nicaragua, Peru, and dozens of other nations. This diversity isn't just cultural texture, it is economic fuel. Miami has become the financial capital of Latin America in a very real sense. Major corporations use it as their gateway to South American markets. International banks and law firms have built their Latin American headquarters here. Miami International Airport is actually the top airport in the entire United States for international freight, moving more international cargo by weight than JFK or LAX. What this creates is a city that genuinely doesn't feel like the rest of the United States. Walking down Brickell Avenue, you are as likely to hear Portuguese or Spanish or Creole as you are English. Miami has produced its own cultural identity. It is not New York, it is not Los Angeles. It is Miami, and there is genuinely nothing else like it. And this diversity draws more diversity. People who feel like outsiders in more homogeneous parts of the country often find that South Florida is the first place they've ever truly felt at home. The economy, the food, the culture. South Florida's economy is far more sophisticated than the beaches and retirees stereotype suggests. Florida has no state income tax. That alone has drawn an enormous wave of high-income professionals and financial firms from the Northeast. Citadel, one of the most powerful hedge funds in the world, relocated from Chicago to Miami. Goldman Sachs has built a significant Miami presence. The signal was clear: and others followed. And here's what's wild. Between 2020 and 2023, more wealth migrated into Miami than into any other city in the world. More than Singapore, more than Dubai, more than London. The food scene is one of the best in the country. Cuban, Caribbean, Latin American, and international influences have produced a culinary landscape that is genuinely world-class. And the nightlife and art scene match it. Wynwood, once an industrial warehouse district, transformed into one of the most vibrant arts neighborhoods in the country, its walls covered in massive murals from world-renowned street artists. Every December, Art Basel Miami Beach turns the city into the temporary art capital of the Western Hemisphere, drawing galleries and collectors from every corner of the globe. During Art Basel Week, more than $3 billion worth of art changes hands in Miami in 1 week. And in 2023, Inter Miami signed Lionel Messi, arguably the greatest soccer player in history, sending the city into a kind of joyous delirium that brought global attention that even Miami hadn't previously experienced. Inter Miami's season ticket waitlist reportedly grew to over 100,000 people virtually overnight after the announcement. The honest reality. A complete picture has to include the hard parts. Housing costs have risen dramatically, pushed higher by the same wave of remote workers and financial migrants that brought energy to the region. Traffic is serious. The public transit system doesn't serve most of the metro in a way that allows car-free living. Summer heat and humidity are punishing and not for everyone. And here's a number that puts it in perspective. Miami averages around 58 days per year above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and heat index values regularly push that into triple-digit territory for weeks at a stretch. And climate risk is real. South Florida is built on porous limestone, which means seawater doesn't just rise over the land, it seeps up through the ground itself. Sea level rise is already causing sunny day flooding in low-lying neighborhoods during high tides. No storm required. Miami Beach has spent hundreds of millions raising roads and installing pumps. The long-term trajectory is uncertain. Insurance costs are rising. None of this stops people from coming. But it's part of the honest picture. Why people stay. After everything, after the costs and the heat and the traffic and the risk, people stay. And when you talk to people who actually live here, you hear the same things over and over. They talk about the light, the way it hits the water in the morning, the way the sky turns colors at sunset that don't look quite real. South Florida averages over 250 sunny days per year, more than Miami's tropical latitude alone can account for, partly a product of how the warm Atlantic and Gulf air interact above this thin peninsula. They talk about the energy, the sense that the city is becoming something, that there's a momentum here that other places don't have. They talk about belonging. Because South Florida is a place where almost everyone came from somewhere else. There is no dominant monoculture telling you how to be. What's here instead is a wild, energetic collage of people from every country and background, all figuring it out together. That, maybe more than the beaches or the weather or the economy, is what really makes people want to live in South Florida. The feeling that this place was built for people who wanted something different, something warmer, something bigger, something that felt, even on the hardest days, a little more alive. Florida's population divide isn't just about geography. It's about desire. It's about what people are looking for when they decide to build a life somewhere. And for millions of people, what they were looking for was exactly this. A strip of flat, sun-drenched land at the bottom of the map, where the water is everywhere, the sky is enormous, and something is always happening just around the corner. That's what South Florida is. And that's why they keep coming. If you enjoyed today's exploration, and if you want to keep exploring the fascinating geography of the US, click right here to see more.